We are live, actually Facebook Live for the first time ever. I am Chris Gazdick, a mental health and substance abuse therapist. Still have that book out, Rediscovering Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self. We welcome you to Through a Therapist's Eyes, the podcast where you get personal insights directly from a therapist in your own home or personal time in your car. So see the world through the lens of a therapist, but be aware this is not delivery of therapy services in any way. And we're pointing out that you can help us out a lot. People don't understand kind of a lot of times how podcasts and our work kind of goes. You help us out a lot by subscriptions and on Apple iTunes leaving a review, all that kind of cool stuff. So help us out, hit the like button. Always 5 stars. We can't go 3 stars. That would be bad. 2 stars even worse. 1 star is a nightmare. So always got to hit the 5 stars. Anyway, contacts and questions, all of our contact at throughatherapist's.com and all of our platforms, they get 100% response by me directly. And we're going to start trying to incorporate them more into the show. So check us out. Throughatherapist's.com is where you get full show transcriptions, all that stuff. Neil's been working out for the website. And contact at throughatherapist's.com. Just like the platform, just like what you see on the name of the show. It's a great way to contact us, and I'm good about getting onto email. So as you know, we have been doing a new format. We have guest co-hosts. So we have Mr. Matthew Hanks. I was thinking about that, man. It's like it flows off the tongue. Matthew Hanks at hanksrealty.com. Like I can't not say the second part and just say your name. I don't know. It's just going to flow. You know what I'm saying? So thanks for coming on, man. This is kind of cool to have you with us. We'll kind of get more to who you are and what we're doing. But if you haven't caught our show, we did a month with Adam Cloninger. Craig is doing more of his coaching business and practice, putting his focus there. So he's transitioned. And we got new energy, new concept from people coming on. And Matt Hanks is going to be hanging out with us this month, unless we have a guest host, which have some things in the works. More on that kind of as we go. But this is, as always, the human emotional experience, and we endeavor to figure this thing out together. So, Mr. Hanks, man, welcome aboard. Welcome here.
Good to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I am glad that we get different energy from people, different insights and different thoughts. And so, as we go along, you can share your view on the topics as we go. But tell us a little bit about you as who you are. I mean, part of the cool thing that we were able to do is really highlight that you're a local guy, man. You know, MatthewHanksRealty.com. Who is that? Who are you? And what do you do?
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Chris, and appreciate the friendship and the opportunity to be here on the show. And congratulations on all the success. It's great to see we're on episode 147.
I know, right?
A lot of great success. And part of our mastermind every Tuesday morning, we able to catch up every week and follow along with the journey. So good to see you have these guests on and cover these topics.
Yeah, you outed yourself. You're a part of the mastermind group. That's absolutely been, how long have we been doing that? For a couple of years now?
3-4 years.
Has it been 3 or 4 already?
Yeah.
God, time just blows by. That's nuts.
So,
what is a mastermind group? They might be wondering.
Oh, we get together and it's every topic under the sun, but really just help each other, support each other. And whatever the topic is at the time, we work through it as a group, and everybody has their 2 cents they put in, and just support each other, really. So,
you're actually kind of one of these crazy people like Adam was, I think, that's born and raised around here and stuck around. Is that true?
Born in Virginia, but I moved here real early on, before I can remember. And
I don't think I knew that. What age were you when you came here?
2 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was only 2 when I came to the Gaston area, and my parents still live in the same home where I grew up in. You know, it's been 40 years that they've been there. So this is definitely home for me. Moved away for a while after college, but came back to this area, and this Charlotte area, you know, specifically Gaston County, just feels like home. And
moved away. I also got to out you too to do some really cool things. You got to tell them about Black Hawk helicopters. Come on,
yeah,
right. Yep, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I've been a real estate agent for almost 20 years, but during the downturn, joined the National Guard, U.S. Army, and had the opportunity to become an officer, and then go to U.S. Army Flight School and fly Black Hawk helicopters. So that was a pretty cool way to during the downturn in the real estate market, and had an opportunity to serve the country for about 8 years.
Yeah.
So, great honor to be able to do that. Thank you.
I'll say publicly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So part of the journey, though, you know, to this point. So it's exciting to have that opportunity.
And I'll point out to the listening audience around the world, I have never gotten an opportunity, though very much want an opportunity to be in a helicopter, let alone a Black Hawk freaking helicopter would be absolutely an amazing life experience, I got to say. Any chance we can get that to happen, man?
Slim to none.
Slim to
on
none.
that one.
Dang!
Sorry about that.
You don't have access to the nation's defense and stuff
No.
because you flew it once before?
I'd be hard pressed to get a ride anymore. So, yeah.
You think you can still handle it?
Flying one or riding in one? I could handle riding in one.
Probably both, because the G's that come down on those things sometimes, I would imagine. Not
No,
quite
we're-
like a
we're
jet.
smooth. It's not too bad.
Is it not bad?
Not bad. A lot better than you would expect.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. What do you do for fun? What do you do for fun when you got downtime, things to hang out with?
Well,
and that
real
sort of thing?
estate. Right now the real estate market is.
Do you ever
just
have downtime, I should
wide
say?
open. So not a ton of downtime, but I do enjoy spending time with my family. This past Monday we were out on the lake, spending some time together as a family, jet skiing and stuff. My son Gabe and I were out there about 50 miles an hour across the water. That was a lot of fun. But golf is primarily, what I would, in my downtime leisure, is what I do.
I actually never have golfed with you yet. I don't know how that's happened.
Yeah.
That is a crime. We need to fix that.
Come join us sometime.
We definitely need to fix that. Although I'd probably be embarrassed with myself. That would maybe not be good. I don't know. I have to pick it up, man. I don't want to be smoked like by 30 strokes or so.
Yeah, it'd be at least 30. I'm probably.
Oh, dude, that sounded like a challenge, Neil. I think we just turned it on. We have to see what we can do.
Yeah, line it up. Let's go.
What actually do you stroke usually?
I'm an 8 handicap.
An 8 handicap? Okay, I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I got a lot of work to do. So let's launch a little bit into what we're doing today. And Neil, I just realized with Facebook Live is now kind of on board. Post that up there by your computer if you would. I watched that. We're learning new things, and so we've been warning you about these cameras that we got going on.
Right.
And, we got that. We're going to be starting to post those on YouTube, and we got the Facebook Live thing going. That's pretty cool. So we're just kind of growing. We just figured, we got new guest co-hosts, so we're going to do a bunch of new stuff. And I do want you to get used to that. So on Thursdays, usually is when we're recording. It's usually about 5:30 where we fire it up, and you can kind of get on to Facebook Live, and we'll interact with you and all. But it just realized in real time, Neil, you're awesome, man. He already had the timer going for me because I just like a therapy session. This is in a lot of ways. Yeah. It's one of the cool things about Through a Therapist's Eyes, right? Like these are real therapy concepts. It's not therapy service, but my clinical brain is kind of moving just like it does all day long. And now that we record right after I'm done doing therapy, my brain's usually trying to transition, and I just can't. So I've been doing therapy like all day long today. And I just realized, my timer's off because I usually use my phone to kind of keep track of what time it is, which we're constantly doing in a therapy session. I mean, right. It's like you got to manage the time all that way. And so it's funny, also a little behind the scenes, Matthew, I never remember to start the timer. So actually, if this is going to be the way it is, you get to start the timer and you'll probably get it every time. Yeah. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Matt, we're going to talk about empty nesting today. Is empty nesting really an empty house? That's the subtitle is when kids get bigger, the problems also get bigger. You ever heard that phrase before?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't mind, and by the way, anytime I ask anything or suggest anything you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer.
Okay.
I tend to share different things, just in a genuine way. Because I say that because I was going to ask you, how old your kids are now. I mean, you have a slew of them. You don't have just one.
There are 3 of them. They stair step at my house: 7, 9, and 11.
7, 9, and 11.
So 2 boys and a girl in the middle.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a handful. I got 2. And mine are 19 and 16. So, it was interesting thinking about what we were going to talk about this week. And we did a parenting thing last week, with a guest that talked about the sort of the whole family, developing a healthy family unit in a concept of parenting. And then actually I went on her show, and we've already recorded it, guys. So Therapist Size Tribe, jump over to, what's the name of her show? Total Potential is the name of her show. And we kind of did a spin-off, right? So we talked about the family unit from the parenting perspective, and then I went on her show and we talked about the emotion-focused therapy from a marriage component and sort of played off each other. So did she tell us, Neil, you don't know when that airs, do you? Do you have any idea when that's coming on air?
I have no clue.
Email.
I'll email Nicole and ask her to get the link because I want to post that on our website so you can get back to it.
Perfect. Yeah. So be on the lookout for that. But we talked about parenting with her, and I thought we'd follow through with that. And I thought it was interesting too, Matthew, because your kids are younger, and then mine are actually 16 and 19. So neither of us have personally empty nested yet. I deal with this in my office all the time. But you're like foreshadowing, and dude, I'm like right on it.
Yeah, you're closer than I am. I mean, we deal with it in our office too. I mean, I'm in real estate, and so the empty nesting piece, when you say empty house, that's right in line with what we do every single day. So we have people call us, and it's either the kids are leaving, they don't need all this room anymore, or the kids have come back, they need more room, and whatever the transition is, we're there to help. So it's right in line. This is something we deal with very commonly.
You're
all
a
the
little
time.
mini therapist as a real estate agent.
In a lot of ways, Chris, that's absolutely the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I love doing this show, because it does address, living life and not being aware of mental health. Really, in most any industry I think you're engaging in, you've got to have an awareness about this stuff.
Yes.
So, and I wouldn't have thought that, but I'm sure you get people all the time. Yeah, we need to downsize, or we need more space because we want our kids to come to the house and be able to stay comfortably. Or
absolutely.
What kind of things do you hear? I'm curious. Actually,
well, multi-generational is very popular right now. So you can have 2-3 generations of the family all living in one house.
Right.
And their home builders are even realizing that that's a trend and building homes specifically for that purpose. So whether it be an in-law suite or a basement area that has its own kitchen, something like that for the kids.
Is that a baby boomer effect, you think?
Possibly so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, or returning children staying in the home longer than they would have, historically or traditionally, turning 18, going off to college, but the college years end and the children come back and
They stick around.
They got to stick around. You got to have a home that's big enough to, and they want to have their own space too. It's not just having a bedroom for them, but having a
bunk beds don't quite work anymore.
Not in this case. No.
Bunk bed, dude. I grew up with my brother in our. I guess we're diverging for a moment, but bear with us. Our room was a bunk bed, a dresser, and another little dresser.
Yeah.
And we had 2 little windows, and I went back and looked at how small the house was. And it was just, it floored me. And
Right.
so you're right. I mean, as these changes kind of come around, if we were to come back to that house, there's no way we're going to be in that bedroom.
That's
so
right.
That probably happens a lot. So hanksrealty.com real quick before we forget, how would they find you? How do they hook up with you?
So hanksrealtygroup.com. So our firm is over in Gastonia, New Hope Road, Hanks Realty Group. And so we're on Facebook, Hanks Realty Group, or you could visit us online at hanksrealtygroup.com.
Awesome. Did you put a phone number out there?
704-931-8480.
Do you have it memorized?
Call or text, of course.
He has it memorized. He's on camera.
Yes.
Nobody has phone numbers memorized.
Well, that's our main number. So call us, text us. We will be in touch with you.
And seriously, I'll put the plug like you guys do. You care about people, and I think it's interesting. People are going to be able to get to know you and see you, in the way that you go about, talking about these things. And as you just said, I mean, you're sensitive to their needs so far as, housing size and life changes and transitions. And I know this dude, I've got to know him, and he cares about people he's working with. It's not just, I would be fair to say, we'll create a tagline for your company, man. It's not just a deal for you, right?
Not just a deal.
Yeah.
We say expect more because we do care.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you're not the only one that's pointed that out, but it is different.
Yeah.
That's how we approach it.
So as always, we like to kind of start out with the definitions. A lot of times people don't really know what we're talking about.
Okay.
And, the empty nesting syndrome is actually like a thing. People call it a syndrome. So, yeah, Neil warned you. I like to catch people cold. So if you saw this title, empty nesting in the States or in different stages of life, what comes to your mind when you think empty nesting?
Well, I mean, I think of it as, my wife and I, we have a home that's a large enough home for our family, and I think, well, we're in a period of time, the next 10 years is probably this is the space that we need. And as all 3 leave for college and leave the nest, we don't need this space any longer. So we would need something different at that time. But I'm thinking in terms of housing because that's what I do every day.
Right.
So, it may be the emotional side of it too with the kids leaving. And that may be more what you deal with. I'm dealing with the real estate side.
So, empty nest syndrome, it's not a diagnosable condition, but it's an experience. It's a thing that people kind of get into. And I like the second definition. The first one's real simple, right? Where is it? A household in which one or more parents, live after the children have left the home. Okay, I mean, that's the general idea of what people think about. But I think a better definition really is a stage in a parent's life after the children have left the home. And that stage is really important because I think of things in a full, full breath in a life cycle, like what happens in different periods of time, and this is an interesting one because we've talked about the lost decade. Reed did that show recently, the first, period of time in the parenting reality, basically oldest kid, age 4 to 14. And then you move into like a different stage where you start re-identifying yourself and boom, like before you know it, you're entering into a different stage that has a lot going on. If you think about the life cycle, midlife, we did a show recently about aging parents. And then now you're trying to re-engage your marriage and whatever, and the kids are leaving. It's a crazy stage of a whole stage of your whole life together as a family. You ever think of the empty nesting syndrome as a stage?
Well, I've not really thought it in terms of the syndrome aspect of it, like the emotional things that hit you. But you go through that, and sometimes you're not expecting it. You go through life, and you wouldn't expect. You're thinking, "I'm gonna have a little more peace of quiet around the house," and
right,
and not as many people at the dinner table at night. But the emotional side that comes with it as well, because if you've worked that many years to prepare your children, I think about that. I've got a certain number of years to prepare for those children to leave.
It happens quick.
And it happens quickly. Like my pastor told me, he said, the days are long, but the years are short. So it happens really quickly. Well, at that point, when the kids leave, you've been preparing for that for years and years, right? Well, now that they're gone, now what?
Right.
And so there's the emotional side and possibly other factors as well that come into play at that point.
I couldn't agree more. When you were talking there, I mean, it occurs to me, what the phrase that came to my mind is you get caught flat-footed. I mean, you're kind of preparing for this really since birth. You teach life lessons to help them get independent and learn how to take responsibility for themselves, learn how to problem solve for themselves, and then like boom, now it happens and they're kind of kicking out, and you really get flat-footed and find yourself not really thoughtful about what does this mean, right? So check some of these out in my brainstorm. What does this stage mean to a parent? If you really get to thinking about it's an awesome therapy question that I ask all the time, by the way. A particular word comes up or somebody says something a few times, and there was a question that was popped to me on a topic. Well, Chris, what does that really mean to you? And I was like, dude, I had nothing. I was just like, again, flat-footed, right? So when your kids leave the home and you're going through a new transition, what does that transition mean to you is a really important question to answer. In my brainstorm, I came up with, listen, okay, I have no purpose now, okay? It occurs to me that I don't know you whom I've been married to for 10, 15, 20 years or whatever it might be. I don't know my spouse. You've heard that one before. I still don't, I still need to support the kids. They've left, but honey, understand, we're still their primary support, right? Or they're still literally here. They've moved out, but they came back. So are they not still here? So aren't we still the same? How's that transition happened? Or I want them to be here, and so I'm going to kind of pull them back, whereas maybe the other person in the, your spouse might be like, no, I don't want them here. They need to really do that transition. I don't matter anymore. I have no significance. The self-talk and the emotions that go into that, and answering that question, what does this mean, is a really important question, because I tell you, I think it can create conflicts. How do we traverse this change in our life? If you don't know what it means to you, then that's going to make a big difference. You see what I'm saying?
I do. Well, I think the key word you mentioned there is purpose, because if your purpose has been tied up into preparing your children for the real world as they leave, and that's your day to day, and that's where your priority is for 18 years, and then that changes just like this as they move out and go into college. And the time's coming up too, right? We're midsummer. College is about to begin.
Oh, that's true. I planned that.
So timing couldn't be better.
Maybe not. I
in
didn't plan
terms
that.
of-
But it is, because you know what? You're absolutely right. You know, kids have graduated, you know, oh my gosh, through the pandemic, and it's already been so stressful. And you're right. Here in about a month, they're getting ready to get up and go all across our country. And people are going to be going through this in a big way. So it is good timing. Here's a cool therapy activity, honestly. So you all can practice along with us. And by the way, if you're clipping into Facebook Live, I'm noticing you probably can't monitor it very well because we're talking, and
Right.
Neil doesn't have access. So if you're clipping into Facebook Live, realize we're probably not going to interact much today, but we'll get used to doing that with Neil, the producer, in the background. Where do these messages come from is something that you really want to begin examining, and how do they penetrate, you know, your daily life? And if you just spend some time sort of being mindful about that and thinking about that, and here's a big tip, you know, that occurs to me as I'm saying that: have these conversations way before, you know, you engage in actually being flat-footed. So when the kid starts turning 16 or 17, and even starting into high school, like, how are we building and moving towards this? What does this mean for us, honey? Having the conversation with your spouse. That'd be a really important thing to do, right?
Well, I think so. I mean, communication is key. I mean, when you're co-parenting, husband and wife, whatever the case is, I mean, communicating, and I think the challenge here with this, Chris, is not knowing that it's coming. I think when you say flat-footed, they're just caught with not knowing this is something that they're to expect. You know it's coming, and it could be. The only thing I can relate it to personally that I've been through is when my oldest went to kindergarten for the first time, and then the house is empty,
Right.
And so it's kind of an empty nest for a few hours every day. But you know, you've never had that experience until they leave, and they've been in your care 100% for 4 or 5 years, and then all of a sudden they're gone, but it's just for the day. We're talking here as they approach the age they go off to college, and it really is empty nest.
You know, it's awesome that you are thinking about it in that way. You're dead on, because we do get prepared for this a little bit along the way. You know, even in middle school, I'll never forget, you know, sitting in the little middle school gym, and the principal comes out and he starts giving you the talk and orienting you. You know, one of the things that I think they almost always begin preparing the parent for is, now's the time, and we're going to talk about here in a little bit, so I'm foreshadowing, to let go of some of the ways that you've engaged your kid in elementary school. So you're right, from the transitions with daycare on to the transitions from elementary school to middle school, on to the transitions when, OMG, the kid got the car. Talk about letting go.
Not ready for that yet.
You're not ready for that. It is. I'm telling you, Matthew, it will trip you out the first time you look at those tailpipes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking my kid on Monday for his permit. We're a little freaked out.
So Neil's in this right now too.
Very much so.
Right. Yeah. When the first time that kid gets in the car alone and starts driving down the road, there. So the point is here, right? There really are all these transitions that are going on all along the while, and if you're paying attention to your experience with them. So again, what's the question, right? What do these messages come from? Where do they come from, and what are these messages, and how do they progress through these different transitions? Is some really good awareness to have in connecting with your spouse. So that's cool. You've transitioned from middle school to high school.
Personally?
Have they not? Well, wait a minute. How old would you say they are? Yeah. What grade is the oldest one in?
Well, we did something new at our school where they had 5th graders in middle school. So
Okay.
that was last year was his first year in middle school.
Oh, I'm off then. Okay.
So,
Yeah,
It's different. Back when
then.
I went through, it was elementary school until 6th grade, but that changed in the school we're in. So
man, they're constantly changing things around. Whatever happened to junior high, right?
that's gone. Years ago, that was gone.
That's way gone. So, yeah, have we made that point, right? Have these conversations, have this awareness, kind of be dialing in and talking about it really all along the way as you go. So let's switch and do a little segment on, okay, the subtitle of this is, okay, so the kids get bigger and so do the problems. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I think so.
So you're an interesting person to ask in thinking about this in the
Okay.
sense that your kids haven't really gotten that big yet. So what kind of things do you imagine blindly that this might mean? Like what kind of things might pop up?
As problems come,
Yeah.
I think about the control that we have over our children, and that control decreases a little bit as you go.
Totally.
And their level of freedom increases, and my level of control as a parent decreases. And so, like when you mentioned the car, okay, we're several years away from them driving, but the moment they leave, I don't know
Several
where
or
they're
a couple?
headed. So he's 11, so permit it
Yeah.
15, so
Yeah.
it'll be here like this.
Yeah.
But I mean, as an example, today, Gabe has his own YouTube channel. Okay. Chopatop.com. So he's trying to
Sweet.
get that going. So I had to give him a plug there.
Absolutely.
Well, he's working hard on it. He's recording his content and he's putting together his Minecraft videos and all. Well, he's online today. Brought him to the office so he could do some editing in the office. I got a extra computer there so he could do that. So he's excited about that, right? Well, he's working on that. Well, I go in to check on him and he's on YouTube looking at other stuff. Well, as soon as I give him that access, my level of control goes down. His
Boom.
level of freedom goes up.
Right.
And so when I think about larger problems, I mean, we deal with one level of problems, but as the level of freedom that he has takes off, he's on his bike traveling through the neighborhood. Next year, it's going to be in a car traveling through the community. I don't know where he's going. I don't know who he's with. And the big thing for us next is the cell phone.
Yep.
Because he's 11, he doesn't have a cell phone. So we're trying to decide, his mom and I decide, when's he get a cell phone? And I don't want it to be when he's 16 or 15 because I don't want the freedom of the cell phone and the freedom of a vehicle
Exploding
at the exact same time.
Right.
So we want to introduce the cell phone at a period before he has the freedom of the car. And then the freedom when he leaves and he's at college and he truly is on his own, that's a whole nother level. So to me, it's related to the amount of freedom that he has, depending on the number of problems that we have.
And there's a bunch of new problems with that come up. And
It's so different than we
different
grew up
world
now.
in the way of social media and the internet and these things that we have phones. I mean, look at this room right now. We have a couple of microphones, we have a couple of cameras, and another phone, hitting the Facebook, and it's literally shot around the world, just like that.
Yep.
It's trippy.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my best friends earlier, and we were talking about some things that happened in the past when we were growing up, and I was thinking, man, I am so glad that there weren't video cameras walking around, production studios essentially in the form of a cell phone
Right.
in everyone's pocket.
Right.
Right. Because that's the way it is today. I mean, you do something silly, crazy, and it's going to be on video, posted, and possibly live before you even realize it. And all the crazy things that we've done in the past and stupid stuff we've done, and it's not haunting us in the form of video evidence.
Yeah,
Right?
a perfect example. I mean, and this is when he was really little. I mean, we had everyone. I think it's, I'm a little embarrassed to share this, but I will anyway because it started, and I believe in being genuine. I mean, little guy in my home decided to use the BB gun. Yeah, you might know where I'm going.
Here we go.
Yeah, and it was on, not TikTok. What the heck was it? It was on Instagram or somewhere. Well, the BB gun was used in ways that we don't support.
I see.
Right. Poor little birdie. And I'm like, you cannot post this, man. Like, this is... And he had no idea. Very innocent. Meant nothing of it. Something that probably people experiment with, when they're kids. We had a horrible day with a turtle when I was a little kid. That's a whole nother story. It was a terrible experience, but we didn't understand, and we were just doing some things, and you learn that way. But now you're learning with an immediate audience, and so here's the point with this segment, right? What kind of problems are we talking about? Because I think that parents are not prepared when the kids get older and the problems get bigger is a phrase that you may have heard, but you're talking about very significant and serious things. I can't tell you, Matthew, how many times I've had, students in my office, 16, 17, college students, 22. Dude, they're becoming sexual online. And they're talking to people that they shouldn't be talking with that are great risks. We've talked about human trafficking on the show before. That's real, people. Like, that really happens. You get drug contacts. You get the major issues with driving and racing. You're a local person. They ever do Franklin Boulevard events? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, there were several areas in town. You knew where they were doing the drag racing.
Right.
And,
That's obviously seriously dangerous. What do you do when that freedom begins to drop off and these things begin to occur? Because the problems really do get bigger.
Well, that's why our focus right now, from a parenting standpoint, is trying to train them up to be ready for that freedom. I mean, if there's anything that I want to train them to do, is to make the best possible decisions in the situation. So
Yeah.
I tell them there's two keys.
Okay.
One is to know the right thing to do, and the second is to have the courage to do it.
Right.
There's really only two keys. So if I can teach them that principle early on, that when he's 18 years old and has the keys and his buddy wants to challenge him to a drag race, okay, is that the right thing to do? Okay, the answer is no. And just having the courage to say no, I'm not going to do it.
My kids haven't made the connections, I think, probably, but every time they walk out the door, you know what I say to them?
Be
Make
careful,
good decisions.
Come home safe.
Nope. Make good decisions.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just that it's a constant sort of reminder, and do you think they do all the time? Like, not even close.
Yeah.
But at least they're thinking about that, because I like the way that you put that. That's absolutely very therapeutically driven. And when they're walking out the door to college, guess what you think I'm going to say to them?
Make good decisions. The same thing. If you trained them up, through years and years, you've trained them up to make good decisions at an early age, they should be in a better position to make them whenever they leave for college. I remember going through the Army training of becoming an officer in flight school, like we were just talking about, Chris. And that was the number one thing, is you got to make quality decisions, especially when you're leading other people.
Right. That's. I didn't know I was a military trained person.
Well, that's key. It's like, what's the biggest training that we're doing? And they're training you. We want you to be able to make quality decisions, and then under pressure.
So when these problems are going and they're growing, anytime I talk about parenting, I'm not going to go into it. Definitely check out the episodes that we did on love and logic. The whole thing doesn't play out in. So, well, what am I trying to say? So the basic idea of love and logic is, follow me for a second, right? Kid, you could do anything that you want to do as long as you don't cause a problem for anybody else. I see you caused a problem there. You need to fix that problem. And then the kid's going to come in and say, no problem here. It's the parent's job to say, yeah, there's a problem. You need to fix it. And he's not going to fix it. And you say, you know what? I see that you didn't fix that problem. Not a problem. It's okay. Then you come around on the back end and say, well, we'll fix that problem. And it gets to the point, if you go through that over and over again, when you say, hey, no problem, kid, don't worry about it. We'll fix the problem. They begin to be like, oh, wow, what are we going to do? How's this going to work? We had a introduction for the audience here. Your kid needed some help. So no, and they come around on the back end, the parents do, and create the structure without a power struggle. So that's a total brief on love and logic. We just talked about it in the last show, so I won't go any further with that. I know, Matthew, you're probably going to be a little bit in the dark with that, but it's okay, because one of the big things about love and logic that we talked about a little bit last week with the whole family environment is that their philosophies are really about building compassion into the relationship with the kid, because it's really tough to be a kid. And they're trying to learn these life lessons and make these decisions, and then give them massive amounts of encouragement when they're trying to figure these things out. So it's encouragement and compassion and the whole parent-child relationship that this strategy really is kind of talking about. And so here's the big point with this, and the wrap up with this segment here is like, look, you just said these freedoms are gone. these freedoms are
Increasing.
growing.
Yeah, they're growing as the kids age.
And your control is gone.
My control is decreasing. Their
Right?
freedom is increasing.
So if your control is gone, what is your role as a parent? Does it not fluctuate? Does it not change? So when you're dealing with empty nesting in the way that they're not even living with you anymore, what begins to be your role? And I like, Matthew, what you said a little bit ago. The whole time you're building up to releasing them into the world and, being thoughtful about, well, they're in middle school. Do we do the cell phone when they drive and the cell phone? We don't want all that. You managing this. You're managing the relationship with this kid. And the big takeaway here is when you're in empty nesting syndrome, your job goes away from providing to supporting. Right? That's the big transition. You're no longer providing very much for them. They are able to provide for themselves. And I find parents very much struggle with, well, what do we do now? And the answer is you hopefully have been building love and logic strategies with compassion and encouragement, and you transition to primarily doing what our mothers and fathers do for us today, hopefully, which is encourage us and support us and are still active in our lives. Big transition.
Yeah, you touched on the point earlier about purpose. So if you're going through empty nest syndrome, it probably is something related to you're losing some of your sense of purpose. You've had one purpose for 18 years, let's say 18. The number may be different. But I don't think there's any loss of value there. You're still a tremendous value to that child as they leave, but your role in their life and your purpose just has to change. And it might be the flat-footed piece that you're talking about.
Right.
The recognition that my role has to change at this time, but my value is still there and my purpose is still there. It's just different at this time. Because you're still extremely valuable in the life of that child.
Yeah. My
Extremely
mama
valuable.
is
It's
very
just in a
valuable
different way.
nowadays.
That's right. And
Yeah.
they still need you just as much, I would say, in a different way.
And, honestly, that triggers my thought to when you're dealing with teenagers. So if you're empty nesting soon, they're teenagers, and we talked about this Cole last week. There's something that stuck to me in the love and logic thing that I talked about last week when I was at a conference with them. They pointed out that with your teenage kids, you want to continue physical touch. And unfortunately, a lot of times they don't want it. But, Cole was talking about last week how she's, fine. The day's going to come when her kids doesn't want a hug, but they're going to get a high five, they're going to get a handshake, a pat on the back, something.
Yeah.
Because that touch is really important. And if you don't do that, they don't realize, oh, you still love me.
Right.
Well, dang. Think about it so far as when you're moving out of your home. Now, I know your kid is moving out. In about 2 months, they're excited about going to college. They want to be active and engaged and in launching into their whole new life and partying and, experimenting with drinking and driving. I mean, they're unfettered. They're out there. How much do they need to know that you're still in their life?
I think that it's critical for them to know that. I mean, what a critical period that they're going through, that they're experiencing that freedom for the first time.
Right.
That's not the time for them to sense that you love them any less.
Right.
And I remember a parenting conference that Susan and I had gone to, and some of it was around the 5 love languages. And they said it was a period of time when your children age before you can kind of start picking up on what their love languages are. We kind of have a feeling for all 3 of ours. But they said that what you do, until you know what it is,
Do 'em all.
You do them all.
Do 'em all.
And you overwhelm.
Absolutely.
and so we just try to take that approach of the 5 love languages. You know which one we're going to focus on for each of them. There's not going to be a focus. We're going to overwhelm them with all 5, all
Right.
3 children, all 5. And that way, no matter which one that they needed at the time, and maybe it changed a little bit as they aged, that we were going to make sure that they received it. So we're purposeful.
And it's a
about
little bit of a side note, but it stands to comment on, one of the things I think about and talk about in marriage counseling particularly, I like the love languages material. If you've ever heard about it, his name is Gary Chapman. He wrote the material. He has also got, Matthew, the 5 languages of forgiveness. If you ever heard of that,
I've not.
definitely check that out because it's equally as groundbreaking. I don't know why he got, major popped for the love languages and not the languages of forgiveness, but it's equally in way of apology forgiveness cycle is important. But the thing is, we speak all 5 languages, and people get hung up on that. So doing 1 or 2 or 3 of them is always a good way to go, is the way I've kind of seen that, But let's circle back, right, because there's a phrase that I wanted to pick on with this, and I've heard it before, and it gives me kind of a little bit of a level of concern in that, you ever hear somebody say, yeah, well, you know what, you're 18, and when you leave, don't just realize, you're leaving and you can't come back. You don't need to be coming back. Just gear your thoughts, gear your life, get ready, and it's okay. We love you, we support you, but you can't come back. There's a closed door at the other end of this empty nesting. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly how I feel about it. I was kind of pondering it in my show prep. And I think I want to go ahead and make the bold statement that that's not a good thing to do. That is something very specifically to avoid. Contrasted, though, and I know this is a little bit of doublespeak, but I think of our friend David. Now, I don't know if you picked up on about it. You know where I'm going?
I think I do.
Yeah. He carries kind of the view that, when his kids are actually, well, he's got some older. He was on our show talking about his situation year ago or so. Anyway, the kid's 16 years old, and he's kind of beginning to prep him. Where are you going? What are you going to do? You leave when you're 18 is the expectation. That's building towards this transition without, closing the door. So there's a real balancing act here, because you also don't want to be 35 years old and live with your parents, right?
Well, my daughter, she's welcome the rest of her life.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah. Be careful there.
No. I think as far as trying to make that statement at this stage, I mean, my kids have got a number of years before we get to that point. It would be too early for me to say that. I don't know what position I'm going to have at that point, and I would probably handle it on a case by case. But I like David's approach is we're not going to wait until you're 18 and make the plan then. You're 16. We've got a number of years. We know it's coming. We're going to be working on a plan for it. Where are we going in life? What's our game plan?
This is a big double bind in empty nesting, particularly now that kids are rebounding and coming back home, and it's a balancing act, right? Think about encouragement and support. How does that operate? Is it encouraging and supportive? And I'm going to say a word here. It's a clinical word. When you have codependency enters into the picture, you get really stuck into this battle of how much is giving and how much giving is hurting. When are we helping and when are we hurting, and how does that operate? There are not exactly clear lines here. But I do, and then we need to move on. But I do want to kind of highlight giving a closed door sort of feel to it. Definitely gives me a little bit of willies and concerns there.
Yeah, I would handle it on a case by case, but I would never want my children to have the feeling that they weren't welcome at mom and dad's house, because there are certainly things that will come along in life that may cause them to want to or need to come home for a period of time. It's not going to be an extended period. If they're there, we're going to be making a plan together of what's going on in life and how do we get you where you need to be. But I wouldn't want to go into it when they leave at 18 saying you can't come back. That wouldn't be my.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, and it's a balancing act to kind of go through. So let's go with the big topic here. Okay, wow. So here's your kids getting ready to leave. They're going off to college or different methods. How do you go through the process of letting go? Oh, man. And we did a whole, I thought we did a show on that. I don't think we did. I think we've peppered it in. We probably need to do an entire show on letting go, because it's a challenging thing to do. But there's a lot of this going on at this time. And over the next couple of months, you're kind of looking at oh my gosh, this is all right in front of us. How do we engage this process of launching and supporting this kid while they're launching? And so letting go is oftentimes the big hitter insofar as what parents struggle with. And you can understand that, right? 18 years, just near 2 decades. Or if it's your second or third child, OMG, how about your last child that you're really getting to let go of? That transition and being able to just drop the control, let them fly, let them go. Boy, it's such a hard thing for parents to stomach.
Yeah. Well, and we know it's coming, and it's a healthy process for the parent and probably and the child. I mean, I'm not a therapist; they're the licensed therapist. But the thought that comes to mind is that I think it's a verse in Proverbs that says that happy is the man whose quiver is full, and it talks about children, right? Well, what is a quiver? It's just that tube that holds the arrows. So you think of your kids as arrows, right? Well, that's the entire point of an arrow, is to draw it back
flying.
And let it go. And if you've done your job, that arrow is straight and true, and it's ready to fly and hit the target. So that's what my thought is when they're 18. I'm
firing.
I'm 18 years of pulling that bow back with that arrow, and when it's ready to launch, I'm letting go.
Yeah.
But when I say let go, I'm just saying my role is going to change. I mean, I go to my mom and dad for counsel today, and I'd say even especially today. And they sit down with me. I talk to them. Or I call them and ask them, "Hey, Mom and Dad, what do I do about this?" And it's just the role is different.
Well, it's funny. You allied to gaining support, garnering support there. And when we talk about the ideal way to kind of go through this, you want to garner support. More on that in a little bit, but what are the problems in letting go, and how does this operate? Let me kind of fire through some of this somewhat quickly in the sense of what I was thinking about. I feel like one of the big centerpieces in the struggle of letting go, it operates around that evil but wonderful thing called money, right? How do you manage watching your kids struggling, eating nothing but ramen noodles, struggling with the daily activities of, buying soap and toothpaste, and are you going to pop them a $50 bill for groceries? Or do you say, "Hey, get your budget together, buddy, and understand that, you bought those YouTube videos that you enjoy and crapped out on your girl there, with really expensive dinners." Do you jump in and save? Listen, in my therapy office, I have had conversations over and over again, and I'm talking about thousands of dollars going out the door to cover the kids' expenses.
I mean, money is so important, but I think of money as just one of the items. That as far as training them and getting them ready for walking out the door, I think of money as just one of them. I mean, budgeting as a necessity.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we've got to train them on budgeting, because that money is going to go a whole lot faster than it'll come. But it's that, I mean, money, it's nutrition, it's all the things in life that hopefully we've prepared them for. Do they have a clear career path of what they want to do? Do they know how to associate with the right people?
And the challenge is, these are things that we've been doing for 18 years, but you never really think about it because you've managed the nutrition. You've managed the structure with religion and how you access that. You've managed the car maintenance. How many dads out there are you changing the car oil every single time the kid needs a car oil change? I don't know about you, but I remember when I moved out, and it was just like there's all these things that I never had to worry about. You know what the biggest one for me was? Toothpaste. It just always seemed to magically be there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, where's the toothpaste?
Yeah. There was an entire aisle at the grocery store dedicated just to toothpaste.
Right. And so, listen, those out there that are listening to kids, you cannot be prepared for all these things. I don't want you to think you can be.
Yeah.
Because you're going to do the best that you can. And the truth is, boom, they're in it, and they're going to have to learn it. And they do figure it out. Because guess what I did in college? I bought
brushed your teeth.
I brushed my teeth and I bought
Good
toothpaste.
for you.
It worked out. But it's scary because you've been doing this for 30 years for them.
Yeah.
Maybe not 30. You've been doing this for a long time though.
Yeah.
So I want to highlight a few episodes because we really talked about letting go in a lot of ways. Episode 94, we talked about letting go with Janice Booth, and she really kind of covered a lot of the ways that you debrief, and she went on trips of solitude, and and kind of really dug into herself, because when you don't focus on the kids, you're then now focusing on yourself. And she talked about that a lot. Book's right there. Only carry what does it say? Only pack what you can carry, right? Those on the camera, you can see my bookshelf and stuff. It's cool, the books and the people that we've had on the show. She was awesome, episode 94. And then episode 78, guess what? Chris's personal story. I want to highlight that one because we're not going to have time today. I'm noticing the time to talk a lot about grief, right? Grief and loss is absolutely a huge part of this process. I think you said that from the get-go. And the reality of it is we don't have a lot of time to talk about how do you cope with grief. But I talked about it when my sister died on that show. That was a raw show, by the way. Oh my gosh. Y'all listening, if you check that show out, we played Country Roads at the end of that episode. Dude, I was losing my crap.
I bet. Yeah, I bet. That'd be tough.
It was rough. Craig and the guy it was the pastor who did her services was with us. And I mean, they started talking about something. I was gone. Thank God the cameras weren't on then, because that was a bit much. But we talked a lot about grief and loss and how to process those things, with that one. What else are we going to get into? I think the goal of parenting, we talked about that a lot. Here's something that I really wanted to highlight. The empty nesting syndrome. There's a process that you're going through. There's a transition that you're having. Part of what you really begin to evaluate in a panicked level is, did I do enough? Did I prepare them? Did I do my job? And I'm sorry, but we all think negatively. You know how much parent guilt there is out there? The parent shame, and society telling us we don't do anywhere near enough. Even when we do a crap ton, it's never enough.
Yeah.
Here's another takeaway, right? You have got to give yourself seriously some grace when you're going through this transition to the other side of the empty nest, and realize, what grace is, right?
Oh, of course.
Permission to give yourself grace and accept that you did as best as you can, and it's okay. As a matter of fact, you know what Cole said? I love this quote. I get to use it.
No, let's hear it.
Right? She said, you know what a good parent is? A parent that's good enough. And I thought that was so refreshing, because, this kid is going out into the dark world, and we know all the crap that can happen to them. We know all of the dangers that are there, right? And you've got to give yourself some grace. You've got to give yourself some peace of mind and just back off the ledge a little bit. And you know what? I'll add, I didn't think of this till I was talking about it now live. Offer your spouse some grace. How about that, right? Like, realize they're struggling with this too. And wouldn't it be nice if they said to you, see the rhyme? I love when I rhyme. Look, you did good, honey. It's okay.
Yeah.
We did as best as we can.
Yeah.
Let's see how it works out.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It is. And I can see where the marital piece of it may be one of the biggest challenges, because for all those years, your focus as a marital couple is the kids in a lot of cases. And then when they leave the house, you look at each other and you barely know each other. You don't know how to get along. You don't know what to do with the quiet in the house. I can imagine that would be one of the greatest challenges.
So let's reframe something here, and we'll move on to the last segment. When you're letting go, are you letting go or are you embracing? Okay? I like to do this in a therapy session with people, reframing things to not blowing smoke, not creating something that's not real, but being able to really reframe something from the negative, dark thinking that you're doing to something that's realistically positive, and we want to not let go, but rather, and if you think about it, I think Janice talked about this on the show when she was with us. You have to let go if you're going to reach out. Like, I'm holding onto this microphone and I want to reach out. I have got to let go of that to grab onto something new. right? Hope I didn't screw up your audio, Neil, when I did that. I just realized if I talk like this, it doesn't work. So that's a big deal. Letting go means embracing the newness of the stage that your family's getting into. All right, let's go to the last segment here of looking at what are some ideals that you're trying to do. Some answers to like what's the ideal situation when we're going through empty nesting. Anything pop off in your brain immediately when I bring that up?
Ideals for us, like
to
for
do it. How do you
Susan
do this?
And I? Well, my thought is I don't want to get to that point and then just wonder or hope
Good point.
if I've done a good job.
Okay, I thought you were making a different point. Okay, what do you mean?
So,
Go for
because I can remember that being one of the things I can remember my mom saying about my dad is when I left. As a parent, you wonder, have I done enough? Have I prepared him enough? Have I trained him enough? Is he ready for the real world? That's
terrifying.
Right. But if you, before you get to that point, have that feeling, if you can say, think about the highest priorities in life. Spiritual, number one. Is he ready physically, financially, all the different ways, all the major things, and say, well, the rest of it, I've been a good dad and I've set a good example all these years, and I'm still here for him. And I'm not just going to let him float away, and I'm not going to talk to him. I'm not done. I'm going to be there, and I'll be checking in. I'm not going to helicopter. Going back to the helicopter.
It's a word.
I'm not going to do it.
Nobody is a helicopter parent, though. That's the way I like to poke at that. Like, everyone talks about a helicopter parent, and no one owns the fact that they are a helicopter parent, like ever. Well, I've never heard it.
I want them to have their space. I want them to do their thing, but I'm not going to disappear. And I'll see you when you get home for Thanksgiving when they leave for college. No, we're going to be checking in. We're going to be there as a resource. We're going to be there as a support system. And there's just too many ways that they can, right? I don't know if other parents feel the same way, but there's too many things that they can get into, or too many roads that they can travel. I'll be checking in. I want to be there as a support system. Some lessons they're going to need to learn. I get that. But that's my philosophy as a parent.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think you're pretty spot on with a lot of that. So the normal way that this goes, or not the normal, I definitely not the normal, but the most common way that I think these transitions begin to occur is exactly like you said. Kids are going to college, right? That's when you're leaving, you're going to a school. That's the way I went out. I went out going to college, and then the summer I had the horrible experience of going back home for a summer, and I never went again. I was done. I was ready to stay out, and that was like being in my apartments. That was when I bloomed, man. It was the best time of my life for sure, I think, in a lot of ways. So going to college is the typical transition, and I think we get a sense of how that happens and how we want to try to ideally go through that. Oh, by the way, a lot of kids absolutely wash out. I can't tell you how many kids I've had in therapy, Matthew, that have gone to school, didn't take the grades seriously, didn't do what they needed to do, and boom, they're back home and they washed out. You got to pick them up when they fall. But sometimes kids move in with girlfriends, or they become close to marriage and then begin moving out. Community college is becoming very, very common, and so you stay at home a little bit longer, and you go into the community college and you kind of deal. It's a little bit of a transition kind of as well, though that'll feel like a lot like their senior year, in a lot of ways. But but they stay home. Okay, so those are the common threads. And I mentioned David's idea, and you're 18, and and how do they go? So here's the the big question: how much of a push? So we touched on it before. Let's circle back to that. How much of a push do you really want to give? Because nowadays kids really are staying home longer. I mean, the millennials have waited longer to have kids. They waited longer to get married. A lot of them are coming back home after they've been to college. I mean, I have parents all the time, full degreed kids. They have full degrees, and maybe they want to go to grad school. Maybe they don't. They're not sure what they want to do yet, and they come back home. I don't have a solid answer, but I do have a word of caution. We need to balance, not a closed door, I said that earlier, but how do you balance the push? Mm-hmm. The old school thinking is you push them out of the nest, right?
Right.
And they fall down somewhere, maybe they fly, hopefully they do. That's not really realistic anymore in today's day and age. You follow what I'm saying? Like, how do we get to this balance point? It's a tough answer.
Yeah. Well, I know my experience. My parents welcomed me back in for a period of time. I left, took a job. That job didn't continue after a while. And when I transitioned into real estate, I lived at home for a while. And at that time, I think I was 23.
Yeah.
So I had already left, gone to college, taken a job. And when it was time to transition into another career field, I lived at home for a number of years until I had my own place.
You know, and I'm right in there right now with that. I mean, I'll share, I think, you know, in a bit of genuine fashion that, and I've had this conversation directly with him. You know, my son's 19. He's not doing the college thing right now. And I've told him, listen, he is doing awesome with his budgeting. He's got the awesome job. His work ethic is off the charts. And I don't absolutely mind supporting him for, you know, a period of time, a little bit of time. I say a little bit. In my mind, it's like a minute because 2 years or 3 years is, you know, I mean, it's like tomorrow. In his mind, I don't know if that means like the next 10 years, but I'm pretty sure that he doesn't because we've talked about it. Matter of fact, he makes the joke. He's like, Dad, you want to push me out now, don't you? You're ready. Like if I'm pissed off with him or something, and he'll pop me. He'll budge me with a jive. But there's a serious balance there that we kind of got to look at. And I think the suggestion I kind of want to go back to is, as you pointed out, actually, you were spot on again. Dude, are you a therapist? Like, what is up?
Play one on TV.
Yeah. What is the commercial? You have you drank your something, your booster drink or something. What is the commercial? Oh, come on. Now I'm bombing. Yeah, there's a commercial. Oh, the Holiday Inn. You slept at the Holiday Inn last night.
That's me.
So now I lost my train of thought a little bit. What was I saying? The kid.
Talking about your son. He's great at budgeting. He's there for a period of time. He's doing well. And you're putting him on a path to really succeed. He's not doing the college thing.
And we're talking about the push to engage. I don't know. I totally lost it. It'll come back to me. But it was a good thought, too. I hate when that happens, you know? The balancing act. So we're kind of looking at how to balance out, you know, supporting them versus pushing them and, you know, engaging in that balance. And it occurs to me along with that, you know, I guess I'll go to my next thought and maybe it'll come back to me because you really got to be coordinated with this. You know, some people are single parents, other people are co-parenting together, other people have step parents. How much of an importance is it, you know, to speak with one voice about how you're doing this? Kids pick up splitting differences, and I see it all the time, you know, in my therapy offices where kids are splitting their parents out. And so when you're empty nesting, you're dealing with this loss, you've got a lot of things going on, even maybe with aging parents, because a lot of things hit at this time at the same time. We want to have conversations to begin framing this together because you're starting to look at your marriage more because that's where the focus transitions to. So are you and your spouse together dating and re-engaging and trying to reconcile or repair? You know, how are you together speaking towards the kid with this balance of pushing them? Because you do push them, and hopefully it's an encouragement and, you know, compassionate way versus softly allow them to recover. I think I got my thought back.
Okay.
Because I was thinking, you were talking about the way that you went out.
Right.
Right. And I was going to give another example. My next door neighbor, I think that I can, you know, safely say, he can remain anonymous. He talked about his kid, and I watched him grow up. I'll call him John, right? So John grew up, and he went off to college, and I talked with my neighbor about it, and he's helped me kind of envision how does this work. Dude, he bombed. He flat fell on his rear end, and he needed help. And so they had to totally reset him. And I remember when, what'd I say, John? Is that what I called him? When John came back, and he was back at the house. It was awesome because he was all grown up and he actually talked to me.
Yeah.
He was a different kid, but he absolutely needed to reset and launch out. So my point here is, yeah, you want to push, and yeah, you need to encourage, but the reality of it is there's absolutely a reset that happens a lot of times when you're kind of going about this.
Yeah.
It's a case by case scenario.
Yeah, that's why I said it's. I wouldn't be able to sit here today and say what my philosophy or policy is going to be about kids coming home, because my kids
never
need
know.
a reset. Oh, they're going to be more than welcome, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure they're on a path for success in life. And if it means a reset in our home, that's what's going to happen.
But there's a lot of problems that can come. And, we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about it. We've talked about it on other shows. Substance abuse can happen. Mm-hmm. They need pushed. Mm-hmm. Anxiety can begin to occur. There are a lot of college students that are struggling deeply with real mental health conditions that need to be pushed. Depression and reaching out. I mean, college campuses are strewn full of depressed kids that are drinking probably too much because they're coping, and they want to kind of come back. So the danger here is when they need a reset, that's fine. When they need provisions provided for them, you run into some risks. You see what I'm saying? See that difficult balance there?
Yeah, yeah.
And there's real issues that people are struggling with.
Yeah.
That need that push too.
Yeah.
And there's no real easy answer with that. And you might differ with your spouse. They may feel totally different than you. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. But you got to kind of work it out, giving the individual factors with your individual kid.
Well, on the marital side of it, I think the important thing that my wife and I have talked about is that we can't lose connection with each other and remain on the same page with our marriage,
right?
And putting our marriage first. We do have a goal of raising our kids, but our marriage comes first, even above the kids, because the kids are going to go, and we are going to remain. And so we focus on each other. We have regular date night, and that's part of the conversation. The kids are growing up. What do we need to do to support them now? What are we going to do to support them then? And it's a major focus. But that way we're not strangers when we look at each other that day when the last one leaves and we look at each other and we're the only ones in the house, so we don't recognize the other person.
It is super hard. I mean, it's
that's why we
particularly when you're in the rat race of doing all the things that you do during all that time, soccer and AAU baseball and dance class, and I mean it's endless. So it
does not stop.
Yeah, it's
always
endless,
something.
So okay, wrapping up here, taxiing in for a landing a little bit. We talked about rekindling the marriage a little bit as a big factor that you want to look at. Episodes 142 and 20. If you will, talking about the lost decade. These shows are really stacking on each other a little bit, the more that we get along. And I pledge, and I've done a pretty good job, Neil. I don't, have to get on the mic, but you got to nod and give me some props. I have pulled in some of the episodes that apply to this one because I need to try to do that, because these do build on, and we take a deeper dive on the lost decade, which is just before this in the life cycle of the family. I think I mentioned that in the front end. But anyway, another factor to ideally avoid, though, this is an avoid, is the good old-fashioned negative coping mechanisms. I cannot tell you how much I find extended people kind of moving into this stage and struggling, landing in land of depression, and just kind of beating themselves up, not giving themselves grace. And they drink, right? To cope. Or they go buy stuff that they can't afford. And, we get into what works with the negative coping mechanisms that, we've talked about on the show, before. They're effective in the short term, but they don't work in the long term. And so hopefully we've given you some things to think about, some things to prepare for, that sort of thing. We need to get out of here, Matthew. What you think, man? How you doing?
It's
having fun with this?
Yeah, I feel like a therapist, even more so than my day-to-day that I do in real estate. I mean, we help people through a lot of things. I mean, that's the thing about what I do every day, being in real estate, is you have the highs with people as they get the keys or they experience new life experiences, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because they're stressed out.
Lows. Yep, there's a lot of stress that goes along with it.
Massive. Well, I do. I appreciate your energy, your passion. Thanks for hanging out with us. We got you for the month of August. No, wait a minute. That's Adam's coming back in August. This is the month of July.
Correct.
So appreciate you hanging out with us for this month. Guys, check out the Facebook Lives and the different things we're doing. Have fun doing the show. We ask you to stick with us, give you those rankings, give us those rankings and star reviews and all that kind of stuff. It helps us out a lot. Not sure where we're going next week, but we will be here. So everyone hopefully enjoying the summer And those around the world, really, we're still with you in the States insofar as the struggle that COVID is still having around the world. We recognize that, and I know it's still a tough time. So hang with us, hang with it, and we will see you all next week. Take care.